Hey guys, welcome to The Strong Young Man. Today I'm going to discuss a very complicated aspect of dark psychology called Machiavellianism. Machiavellians understand that the world can be a harmful place. They are pessimistic about the state of the world and understand that people or groups of people are hurt every day by the ignorance and insensitivities of others. Machiavellians will commonly assign blame to the victims and justify the world's karma by claiming that stupid people deserve to be hurt. This is known as schadenfreude, the joy at the misfortune of others. The active and more toxic form of Machiavellianism is when people realise that other people are stupid and exploitable enough to be taken advantage of. Machiavellians seek to take advantage of people by adding value to their own life at the expense of their victims. It's a very dark trait employed by very damaged individuals. Machiavellians are quite hard to spot, but there are warning signs. They will commonly employ the following techniques to take full advantage of their victims. Technique number 1, condescension. Putting down someone else is the first sign of Machiavellianism. The victimizer attempts to establish superiority over their victims by demeaning them. When a victimizer belittles their victims, the victimizer establishes superiority while at the same time making their victim feel inferior. The aim of this is to transform their victims into becoming their dependent. Once the superiority is established, they are able to further their agenda by implementing the remaining techniques more easily. Technique number 2, deception. Deception is considered any deliberate action or inaction that conceals someone's intentions. Machiavellians use this technique because deception is more likely to further their agenda than being truthful. Lying is the most common form of deception. A lie of commission is where the incorrect facts are told to deliberately mislead the victims. A lie of omission is where the truth is deliberately not told. The lie of omission is structured so that the truth is the least likely conclusion by which the victims are left to incorrectly assume the missing information. Other forms of deception include, but are not limited to, equivocation, concealment, distraction, conflation, exaggeration, and understating. Technique number 3, gaslighting. Gaslighting is an extremely toxic form of deception. The term originated from the 1938 British play Gaslight, where a character attempts to convince his wife that she is insane by slowly dimming the gaslights in their home while telling her that nothing has changed. Gaslighting is a form of psychological abuse where the victimizer makes the victims question their sanity, perception of reality, or memories. The gaslighter will allow their victims to develop feelings of anxiety, confusion, and an inability to trust themselves. It serves to increase the discrepancy of the sanity between the victimizer and the victims, putting the victimizer in a position where they are easily able to manipulate the victims using the remaining techniques. Technique number 4, blackmail. Blackmail is an act of coercion that uses the threat of revealing or publicising either true or false information about a person or a group of people, unless certain demands are met. The intent is to harm the victims in order to force them into giving the victimizer what they want. Technique number 5, extortion. Extortion is the use of unjustified threats of physical or emotional abuse in order to make the victims feel indebted against their will. This can be done for many reasons, including to receive money, an essential service, to enforce compliance, or avoid legal consequences. Robbery is one example of extortion. If the victimizer's demands are not met, then extortion can progress to the final stage, which is an ultimatum. Ultimatums are a statement of terms, giving the victims an option of compliance or rebellion, which will come with a consequence. Not all ultimatums are bad. Sometimes we issue children with ultimatums to get them to do something that they don't want to do that we know will benefit them. The ultimatums that you need to be looking out for are the ones that are intended to benefit the victimizer at the expense of the victims. These ultimatums are declarations of powerlessness. The bigger the terms of the ultimatum, the bigger the threat or consequence, and the more powerless the victimizer feels in their requests. If the emotional state of the victims prior to any ultimatum is fragile, it will most often result in compliance. This is why manipulators seek to weaken their targets before employing this technique. Ultimatums from your close relations intended to benefit the victimizer at your expense should never be accepted, and here's why. 1. Using coercion to force an outcome is a violation of your relationship with that person. They are irreparably destroying the trust created within that relationship. 2. The person is toxic, and you must do everything you can to sever the bond that connects the two of you. If they are behaving this way overtly, they will behave this way covertly, and maybe even unconsciously. 3. Any change you make through an ultimatum is non-genuine. Ultimatums from another are a final demand, which have come about because of your repeated failure to adhere to their requests. Accepting the terms of any ultimatum means that the threat is prompting the change in behaviour, rather than the genuine desire to do so. Preserving the relationship with this person means that the foundation of the relationship has changed to be based off threats, rather than genuine connection. 4. Accepting an ultimatum is to admit that you need them more than they need you. The victimizer formally establishes a position of authority over you. The Machiavellians are now able to become authoritarian and dictate terms whenever they please. Essentially, ultimatums, even the same ultimatum, will be used as required to enforce compliance. In general, whether you accept or reject an ultimatum from someone you are close with, you are at relational crisis point. It's a fork in the road where you can wholly choose to become more powerful and walk away, or you can forever forfeit your power over to the manipulator. Technique number 6, torture. When the victims fail to accept the terms of any ultimatum, the victimizer will likely move to enforce the consequences. This is called torture, and it may involve long drawn-out periods of revenge. It inflicts pain, causing emotional or physical trauma until the victimizer's demands are met. It is the last resort tactic for Machiavellians to use in order to get what they want. Machiavellians work best when the victimizer knows their victims very well. They understand their victims' existing emotional trauma, and they can work with their victims' insecurities to elicit the greatest emotional or physical abuse. If the person is deceptive, then they can enact all these behaviours right under your nose. They will change the way they treat you slowly over time so that you don't notice. The worst kind of manipulators are ones that aren't even aware that they are doing it. This is because they don't even understand their own behaviour, let alone believe that there is anything wrong with it. They are unconscious, and so they're unchained. Women are just as susceptible to Machiavellianism as men. Women who possess this trait can be absolutely ruthless. These are the women that have no compunction in destroying a man emotionally and financially in a divorce. When they have no more use for you is when you will see their true character. There is no benefit to them using their energy to hide their dark psychology anymore. It is critical to make sure that the people you are closest with do not possess this ugly trait. Often, we choose to ignore the negative qualities of the people who we are closest to because losing them would cause us a greater degree of pain. Machiavellians take advantage of this psychology, and the closer you are to them, the more power they have. Machiavellians will never change, so don't hang around hoping they will. There may be periods where they don't use this manipulation as frequently, or it's not obvious due to their deception, but they will eventually bring out these tactics whenever needed, especially when you show them non-compliance. The final thing worth mentioning is that not all manipulation is harmful. Manipulation can insinuate its way into our relationships in all sorts of ways. Sometimes we deliberately deceive people to preserve their ego and not hurt their feelings. Sometimes we deliberately use manipulation to get children to do things we know are good for them, like eating healthy food. Deception and manipulation done for the greater good is not Machiavellianism, it's a form of care, and it's your duty if you're a parent. True Machiavellianism requires deceit and manipulation targeted to deliberately harm someone to serve the manipulator's own benefit. Learn to detect the Machiavellianistic traits in the people you are close to, and then avoid them, or suffer the consequences. Thanks for watching today's episode. In episode 131, I'll be talking about psychopathy. Subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when it drops. Catch you then.